What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And today we're going to be rehashing kind of an old argument or an old kind of discussion that I think I even made a video about like over 2 years ago, talking about a potential Horizon set for the Pioneer format. And while we've seen the impact that Horizon sets have had on Modern, where in the short term it feels pretty bad, and I think in general players, like Horizon sets, but then also kind of, well, I guess more or less a love-hate relationship with those Horizon sets for the fact that it kind of seems like it breaks Modern for a short period, and then once we kind of ban the cards that maybe are a little bit too powerful or contextually too powerful for the format of what's going on, then the format ends up kind of having this renaissance and ends up being as diverse as it's ever been. And of course we know that Pioneer up until recently has kind of had some diversity problems where we had a 3-deck format turn into a very solid 2-deck format in about the last like few weeks to a month of the Pioneer format before we had our huge abandoned restricted announcement back at the end of August. While I think a Horizon set could be really neat for Pioneer as we see kind of brand new cards printed and kind of what a Horizon set entails for the Pioneer format as a whole, I don't think it's actually necessary. And there could be an argument for bringing back an old product that players really liked back in the days of Modern that could see a return to Pioneer, and I think would be maybe a little bit more appropriate now than something like a Horizon set would be, which I think could potentially come in the future. But of course, before we get too deep into the pros and cons of a Horizon sets or maybe having a new kind of product or whatever we need to do for the Pioneer format, to make it fun and exciting for those players that are pretty dedicated to that format. If you're not subscribed to the channel, if you want to see more videos from me where I post mainly about the Modern and Pioneer format, as well as some other longer form videos such as this one, then please consider subscribing and ring that notification bell so you know when videos get posted. It's a free, easy way to support me and my content. And if you want to support me even further, I got a few links in the description down below. One goes to my Discord server. Feel free to join over there if that's something that interests you. You can follow me on Twitter. I got my Twitter handle down in the description below, as well as my link to Mana Traders, where if you follow that link and you sign up for a new Mana Traders account, you're going to get 5% off your account, where essentially through Mana Traders you're able to rent whatever decks that you want to play in any given format, and they have a free tournament series that you can get into as well, where you can actually win prizes. There's actually quite a bit of money that's on the line, and you get I think a 10x bonus if you have a Mana Traders subscription as well. So it's something that you can get into. It's a way that I play Magic competitively. Like this, I'm not able to get out and play as much, and of course Magic cards are pretty expensive, and this is a way that I can basically rent and play whatever decks I want to play for the channel or just for myself if I want to test against certain things or play with certain things. So it's something that's really cool. I've been subscribed to Mana Traders for about, I think this current subscription I have like almost 3 years in, and total I've been subscribed through them for about 5 years. Between two different stints. So it's something I highly recommend if you're looking to get more into competitive Magic. You don't really want to necessarily commit to a certain deck. You want to try out a few things, or you just don't want like necessarily the financial burden of trying to own the cards, sell them, whatever, when you want to play different decks. Then Mana Traders is the perfect way to kind of go about things. And of course, if you follow that link in the description, you'll get 5% off of your monthly Mana Traders subscription. So pretty cool. Everyone benefits from it. So I do greatly appreciate it. Thank you all very much. And let's go ahead and get into the video. So when starting this discussion, I think the first thing that we need to go over is what exactly is a Horizon set. And a Horizon set, or at least in the case for Modern Horizons, it's essentially a set that is going to print all new cards that are going to be legal in the Modern format, and by extension Legacy and Vintage, while also printing cards that weren't previously legal in the Modern format and reprinting them in the set, making them legal for the Modern format. We've seen cards like Quirion Ranger being printed that were previously legal in Modern but now are legal in Modern to kind of help bolster the Elves archetype that we really haven't seen for quite a while in the format. Of course, it's still not seeing play, but that's just kind of the idea of some of the cards that we would see reprinted in kind of a Horizon set. So we could see something like Ad Nauseam being printed into Pioneer, just because that's kind of an archetype that has not seen any considerable amount of play or any serious play in Modern, at least from a competitive sense, in quite a while. So we could see cards like that just finding new life into the Pioneer format. Well, I think the concept of a Horizon set would be really neat. Kind of naturally inject some power into the format and then again having these kind of modern legal cards that maybe don't see a lot of play in the modern format, seeing a new life in Pioneer would be really awesome. There's only a few problems that I have with actually having a Horizon set in Pioneer right now. For one, we already have some of these cards that were former modern staples seeing printing in standard legal sets. We had Liliana the Veil in like the Brothers War kind of like block-ish that we had there, and then in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, we actually had Cavern Souls getting reprinted as just a few examples. These cards didn't absolutely break the standard format. They didn't really have an impact on the modern format. Of course, we know Cavern of Souls has kind of its place, and Liliana for a little bit was kind of relegated to the sideboard. And I think in certain archetypes now she sees some main deck play, but by no means is she a world beater in Pioneer as she was in Modern all those years ago. So I think that at least for some of the older cards that were legal in Modern that maybe have kind of been power crept out of the Modern format and by extension maybe a little bit of the Pioneer format, you end up seeing them printed in Standard and they don't really have a huge impact. Again, they're not like ruining the Pioneer format. In fact, they could definitely be argued that there's been more cards that were legal in Standard that have ruined quote unquote the Pioneer format over cards that maybe weren't previously legal or has been a while since we've seen them have an impact in whatever formats they were previously legal in that get printed into Standard and ruin that format. So I don't think that a Horizon set is really necessary in that case because we already see some cards that were pretty powerful end up seeing reprints in Standard. However, I think that this would be a good opportunity to kind of bring back a product that we had not seen for a while in Pioneer that used to be kind of a staple of Modern, and that would be a Pioneer Master set. So kind of break down what a Master Style set looked like for maybe those of you that didn't get to open or really see any of the like modern master sets or even any of the other legacy masters stuff that kind of went around in the like I guess early to late like 2010s. Essentially, master sets would just be full reprints of cards that were legal in that set. So for modern, we would see things like Dark Confidant being reprinted. We'd seen like Snapcaster Mage. We saw Liliana. Tarmogoyf got its first reprint in master sets and was essentially the chase mythic for every master set that was ever printed, which was the 3 that were specifically designed for modern. A lot of these are just a supplemental product that is really fun to draft while also being able to open some staples of the previous format. This would kind of be a good place to see something like Mana Confluence or Nykthos, where you can kind of generate some pretty fun draft archetypes for those sets and have it be something that isn't just I'm cracking packs hoping to open a Mana Confluence or a Nykthos or maybe a reprint of Liliana the Veil or whatever. I think that this kind of allows older cards that maybe players weren't able to pick up at the time, or even especially for like the newer players, where they're able to kind of get cards that even from like the Throne of Eldraines or even the other standard sets that maybe out of print that have kind of rotated, even though we have now a bigger standard to kind of work with. I think that this is kind of brings in a way to reprint some of these more powerful cards that again aren't seeing print anymore, or their print run is over and are pretty expensive to get, that are multi-format staples that you can print into a Pioneer Horizon set, and it kind of gets a little bit of everything for everyone. This is like a good launching pad for players to kind of get into where maybe they can draft it a time or two at their store, they end up getting a few staples, and then they check out maybe the Pioneer format and they find out that, oh hey, I actually have uh, a few of the more expensive cards for this deck, and then for maybe a few $100s, whatever, at the very most, they're actually able to finish what they are, what they essentially started to build, quote unquote, before when they started drafting and everything like that. I think it's a little bit more fun. I think with what we know about master sets now, where we started kind of adding box toppers to the set, and just better practices when it comes to reprinting and a better understanding of how limited works, and as being just a product that can survive outside of just players cracking packs to open up that chase mythic or chase rare that is in the set, I think would be a really fun idea over something like a Horizon set. I think there's more cards that need to be reprinted that are legal in Pioneer that than cards that need to be printed that were previously legal in Modern that can be printed into the Pioneer format. And while I think both concepts are fun, I think at some point there can be a Pioneer Horizon set where we can see cards that maybe that were legal in Modern Horizons 1 that aren't seeing any play in Modern anymore, or whatever the case may be, that actually get printed into Pioneer. And I think that would be a lot of fun to kind of see some of the natural progression where we see cards that maybe can't hack it in Modern anymore, or just see very, very fringe play kind of get a new life on Pioneer. I just think as of now, with how powerful some of the standard sets are, I mean, we literally see Liliana the Veil as, one of the most powerful planeswalkers of all time at one point, where people would argue if Liliana the Veil was more powerful or as powerful as Jace the Mind Sculptor, which is definitely like a 2010s like argument that, people have probably had at least a time or three. And, we see cards like that being printed into standard. So I think Pioneer and Standard don't necessarily have like a dramatic shift in power level. I don't think, while Pioneer is definitely in a vacuum probably more powerful than Standard, I definitely think that Standard is keeping up very well with kind of printing these new cards into Standard that create kind of a fun Standard environment that also have some impact on the Pioneer format pretty positively. I think the big thing is, trying to keep the Pioneer metagame fresh, where we don't have kind of what we had for most of 2024, where we have two decks essentially dominate the format and then slowly kind of separate themselves from everybody else. Of course, I don't think that's necessarily a problem of a power level problem where Standard isn't printing enough cards that are powerful, so we need to have like a natural or a different way of injecting power level to kind of rotate these decks out of the format. I think that was just the fact that we had two very busted archetypes that didn't get addressed until probably way later than they should have. So, that's just my personal opinion. But I think a Horizon set could be on the horizons for Pioneer, but I think right now a master style set or some kind of reprint set would actually be more beneficial to Pioneer. And to kind of give you an idea of why I necessarily think that, here's something to kind of keep in mind. So Modern officially became a format on August 12th of 2011. So 2011 is essentially the year that Modern officially became a format, and then the first set that is legal in Modern is from 2003. The release of Modern Horizons 1 came around like the middle of 2019, the same time that they announced Pioneer, around that time. And, so from 2019 to 2003, that's 16 years from the announcement or from the release, of a Modern Horizon set for Modern. 16 years. And while I don't think Pioneer necessarily needs to wait, 16, till 2029 to get a Horizon set and, have like a bigger gap and a bigger card pool to where like, okay, now we start just kind of trying to inorganically rotate the format and inject some new cards into the format. I'm not saying that, but the fact that, the format was, officially released or inceptualized or whatever, created in October 21st of 2019, and it only went back to 2013, where Modern ended up going back, we'll say 9 years, 8 years, back to 2003 from 2011, and we went from 2019 back to 2013. Of course, we are now 11 years into, 11 years worth of sets for Pioneer, and I think the power level has definitely kind of scaled up, where I think you could argue for modern sets, and where I think when designers are more conscious of what is going on and trying to print cards that are of standard power level, and then printing cards that are modern power level, and trying to print cards that aren't going to absolutely break standard while also being kind of like these modern playable cards. I just don't think that really exists anymore. I think we just have, very powerful standard sets with some cards that contextually are good in the format, and we've gotten better through design that now, we can print some powerful cards into standard, and then now we obviously have a set that we can print some even more powerful cards directly into modern without potentially breaking the standard format and having those cards having to be banned and kind of giving players more confidence in standard. I just think that Pioneer being so close to like what standard is now, maybe not necessarily in what the metagame looks like, but the fact that some of the cards that are pretty powerful in Pioneer and some of the best cards that we have in Pioneer are also some of the best cards in standard as well, and they're not necessarily warping the format. And I think that while Horizon set can do a lot of good in the future, I just don't think it's the answer right now. I think you can
kind of find a balance of trying to reprint cards that are currently played in the Pioneer format and just kind of give players access to those older cards. I think that is something that's a little bit more beneficial in the short to medium term, where I think a Horizon set, looking at it long term, will end up being better once kind of the format expands and we kind of get farther along into the future and we kind of see what kind of format we want to see Pioneer be. And of course, with these Horizon sets where we see Fetchlands reprinted, maybe we can even see some more Shockland reprintings to kind of bring the price down even farther and make them more ubiquitous to players that, again, maybe aren't around to actually pick up copies of those cards, even though they're relatively cheap now, where we kind of see Fetchlands in that territory as well, where they're actually pretty cheap from where they once started. I think that there's just a lot of potential and a lot of different designs and routes we can take with either of these. You could even kind of mash these two together and figure something out from there, where you don't necessarily have to follow directly the Horizons formula, but we've also seen it basically succeed in the medium to long term for Modern. So maybe that they, if it ain't broke necessarily, don't fix it, is probably the approach that would be taken if we saw a set like this. But, let me know in the comments down below. I did ramble for quite a bit, so I apologize, but don't apologize at the same time, because that's kind of what I do here. I just like to throw ideas at the wall and see what sticks. So, with kind of all that information thrown at you and some of my thoughts and ideas of that, how would you approach the Pioneer? Does Pioneer need a Horizon set or even a Master set? Is it totally fine the way that it is? Let me know in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel again if you're interested in more Modern and Pioneer content, as well as these other longer form videos. Keep an eye out for us over the next weekend in RCDC, where hopefully we can end up taking it down. I would just love a day two to kind of keep the confidence a little high there as well. Check out the links in the description down below. Support the channel any way you can. I do greatly appreciate it. That's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in the next one.